What's up, everybody? My name is Del. This is Del on Movies. Thanks for hanging out with me. And if you've been here before, thanks for hanging out with me again. And today we have another community challenge that's going around. This one issued by the Rad Pack, and they're asking us for our Rad 9. That's 9 movies that made us into the people we are, the movie viewers we are, they impacted our life. I'm going to get right to it with my 9. It could have been 90 movies. I mean, it probably could have been even 900 movies, but 9 is what number we're stuck with. So I'm going to go ahead and try to do my best to stick to that. And forgive me if I mention other movies, but hey, let's get to it, guys. The first one is, I've mentioned this a lot on other channels when I've been asked this question, the movie I have the earliest memory of, and that is, of course, one of these movies. That is Enter the Dragon, my favorite Bruce Lee movie. And it's a movie that I saw in the theaters when I was very, very young, and my earliest theater memory ever. And from there, Bruce Lee has been with me just pretty much throughout my life. And honestly, it could have been any movie in this set, any of his 5 movies, because I saw them all over and over as a kid on TV when they showed them, and just ate up every moment of them. And of course, it obviously could have been a couple of movies that are in this set, especially Five Deadly Venoms, another movie that I saw over and over. So if I have to pick one rep from the martial arts genre, it would be Enter the Dragon. That kicked off my love for those types of movies. The next movie is kicked off my love of superhero movies even before Superman the movie, which is the one everybody thinks of. But I saw this before that, and not in a theater. I saw this on TV at least 100 times when I was a young kid growing up and in love with the Adam West Batman series. And of course, there was a movie, Batman the movie, that was a spinoff of the series. And it was just it was phenomenally fun watching this as a kid. It was funny, but when you're that young, you kind of take it a bit serious. And then of course you got the bam, kapow, and all those things that pop up when Batman is fighting. Then you have the bomb scene when he's running around, he's holding a bomb over his head. And then years went by and I hadn't watched it, and went back to it as an adult and found it just even more hilarious because of how much they slipped in past the censors back in the day, because there's a lot of sexual jokes in this movie, and it is a just a hilarious time. I know people think it's too campy, too goofy. They want their Batman super dark, super serious, but this one is not that, and it's still a phenomenal film. The next movie is another one I saw on TV. Never saw this in a theater. It used to come on TV all the time on the late show or the late late show. So 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night it would start, and I was always a night owl, so I was up that time of night watching movies. And this is the days before cable, so you watch whatever was on. And this movie was on a lot. This is The Warriors, and it I never wanted to get in a gang or anything like that, because I'm just a little too square for that. But it was a colorful movie, just one of the coolest movies of the 70s. And just you just get into the story of this band of misfits just trying to fight their way back home after being accused of murdering someone that is near and dear to all the other gangsters in the movie. So The Warriors is one I must have watched. Again, I watched this movie I don't know how many times. I'm not even going to try to give numbers on these things, but it is just one that was always, whenever it came on, I was sitting in front of the TV. And this is another one that was on the Late Late Show, my very next movie. And this one also kicked off my love of horror and blaxploitation simultaneously, pretty much. I probably saw this around the same time I saw another movie that I didn't pick, which is The Exorcist. That movie scarred me and kind of scared me off horror, but this movie brought me back in. And of course, I'm talking about the original here, Blacula, and the sequel, Blacula Scream. I actually didn't see until I was much much older. But Blacula I used to watch all the time, and it helped me fall in love with vampires. The vampires were just the coolest creatures out there. And of course, around that same time, I used to watch. There was Abbott and Costello movie, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, that Bela Lugosi was in. So another vampire. He played Dracula in that movie also, and uh, so vampires were just they were my thing as a kid. If I had a horror creature that I loved, it was vampires, and it is still a fantastic movie. So check out Blacula if you've not had a chance. Blacula Scream is the sequel. Check that one out too. Can we get a 4K of these movies? I'm not sure if they're on Blu-ray or not. I'll have to check, or if you know, let me know down in the comment section. Next movie is one I'm pretty sure 99% of the people who click on this video will have seen, and it's not the original from this franchise, which I could have put here too, and that original is Star Wars, which is now known as A New Hope. But I'm going with the second movie, The Empire Strikes Back. This one, guys, it's the movie that kind of opened my eyes a little bit, in that, and I'm spoiling it if you haven't seen it. I'm sorry, but the bad guy wins. It doesn't always work out for the hero. And I saw this in theaters when it came out in 1980. So I'm 9 years old, or about to turn 9, depending on what month. I forget what month this came out. Um, that's a game changer for you, because everything I've seen up to that time, the good guy wins. I watched a lot of the Batman TV series, the Adam West show, and every episode, well, every other episode, there was a cliffhanger where Batman was in danger, but you always knew the next episode was coming up and he was going to get out of it. This one, I suppose you should have known that there's another movie coming and he's going to get out of it. But when you go into a movie as a 9-year old, you expect to walk out with the good guy having won, and that didn't happen. Blew my mind and just put me onto a whole new way of storytelling that I wasn't quite ready for. If Blacula kicked off my love for horror, then this movie kind of set me down the rabbit hole of horror. And I'm talking about the original Friday the 13th. Um, I didn't see this actually when it came out. It was a couple years later when I saw it. But I do remember the hype surrounding the movie when it came out. Very vividly remember, there were news shows constantly for weeks, right before and right after the release of the film, talking about how detrimental it was to society, basically. It was just gore and boobs is what they boiled it down to. And it's a little more than that. I mean, granted, not much more. And when I finally saw it, it was like, oh wow, you can do that in movies, because even in a movie like Blacula, we're not like, you know splitting people's heads with an axe, for instance. And when I saw that, at first it was kind of scary, because I saw it when I was maybe 11. um but then it was one of those things where I saw it on HBO first, and they would play a movie repeatedly, you know, over and over and over for a month at a time. So I got to see it, this and Friday the 13th Part 2, and I might have even seen that one first, but this one I returned to more often. And so I got to watch it quite a bit, and ever since I've been in love with slasher movies. Those are my favorite types of horror movies. So just wouldn't be here talking about horror movies at all if it wasn't for Jason Voorhees, or Jason's mom in this case. And again, if you've seen Scream, that's already been spoiled for you. The next movie comes from this franchise, and this kind of set me on. Even though it's not technically a B movie, this is a raunchy teen comedy, but it kind of a gateway for the next movie I'm going to talk about after this. But it comes from this franchise, and I wanted to show off this little lenticular DVD set that I have here. And of course, I'm talking about the original Porkies, which is there, and I don't like that artwork actually. I do want to get them on Blu-ray. This movie it sparked my love for raunchy teenage sex comedies, and of course and I hate to say it, but movies that had lots and lots of boobs, like wow, you can do that in a movie. So I was experiencing a lot of things right between that age of 9 to 12 with my movie watching, and Porky's is one of those movies that most kids my age hadn't seen, and their parents wouldn't let them see it. My mom was really lenient about that kind of thing, and I watched it and then couldn't stop watching. I watched it over and over and over. I watched it lots and lots of times, and any teen sex comedies that came out during the 80s, I was trying to watch them, and it was all sparked by this movie. And one of those movies was the next movie that I'm going to talk about, and it's another movie that played on HBO, and it played for nights on end. I mean, in a given week, I would see it 4 or 5 times, and at this time, I was doing this during the summer months. I stayed with my grandfather for a couple of summers in North Carolina. I was growing up in New York, and I would stay up all night watching movies on HBO. Whatever they were showing, I was watching. And this movie showed over and over and over, and I watched it over and over and over. And it's The Last American Virgin. I don't have the fancy new. I think it came out on 4K recently. Don't have that yet, but I still do find enjoyment just with the DVD here. And watching it as a kid, like with Porky's, I mean, you get into the movie because it's funny. It's got a lot of nudity, and that's all you need when you're 12, 13 years old, whenever year this came out. Returning to it as an adult, there's actually more to it than that. It actually gets kind of dark. It just goes places where a lot of other teen sex comedies don't. So I appreciate it for that. So you can go ahead and check it out and see what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's a movie that I watched so many times as a kid, and it was just, well, I'm not even going to tell you that. I will tell you this, tell you the kind of true story of this movie, that it happened on more than one occasion. So I mentioned I was staying with my grandfather and my grandmother, and where we slept was downstairs, and their bedroom was upstairs. And they knew I was watching movies all night, but they didn't really monitor me either. Not so much, but every now and again, they would watch a movie late at night on HBO also, and so sometimes it would be the same movie I'm watching, and they'd watch and they wouldn't say anything, even though they knew I was watching it, until some nudity happened. When that happened, suddenly I would hear my grandfather at the top of the stairs, and he'd say, "Turn that X-rated stuff off." So then I'd have to turn the channel for a little while, at least until he fell asleep. But that's a fond memory of my childhood. So The Last American Virgin is a movie that gave me that memory. And finally is going to be the oldest one on my list. The newest movie on my Rad 9, because I'm older than most of you guys out there that are doing this. And this movie is The Naked Gun, the original one. I had a big fun with the TV series that came out, and I only watched a couple episodes because they didn't show it much, and it was hard to find at times. Police Squad was the name of the show. But then the movie came out when I was about 17 years old. I watched it, fell in love with it, and it's one of those movies that I didn't know. I knew it was a comedy, but I didn't know really what I was getting myself into, even though I had seen Police Squad, but I didn't really get it. And with this movie, I finally got it. It's a spoof. It's self-aware, and it's a wink and a nod. The whole thing is made with a winking at the audience, and that kind of comedy has grown on me and stuck with me. And a lot of my favorite comedies are these kinds of comedies: Naked Gun, Airplane, and then as we go on down the line, we get Scream, and just a whole host of movies. But it all started with The Naked Gun. So that's my Rad 9 movies that made me. Go ahead, if you want to put your Rad 9 movies in the comments, go ahead and do that. Head over to the Rad Pack channel. Watch their videos. Watch all the videos, because lots of people are making these videos. And if you have a channel, go ahead and make your own, instead of just putting a comment here, and tell me what your Rad 9 movies are that made me. That's all I have for you guys on this one. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.